All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're cracking open a vintage children's Arabic textbook. But listen, this isn't about learning Arabic. Not really. What we're going to see is how this book, right from the very first page, is doing so much more than just teaching words. It's actually building an entire worldview. So where does it all start? Well, with one of the most basic words you learn in any language, the word for this. Sounds simple enough, right? But in Arabic, this little word is actually our very first clue about the structure of the language and, the world it's trying to describe. So right away, you, as the student, have to make a choice. You see something, you point, you want to say, this is a. Simple. But which word for this do you actually use? Well, thankfully, the book gives us the answer right off the bat. And check this out. This is such a perfect way to show the idea of grammatical gender. If you're pointing to the male teacher, the book says to use the word hada. But for the female teacher, nope, it's a totally different word, havihi. And this isn't just a suggestion, it's not optional. This is the absolute foundation, like the very first building block of how this language works, according to this book. Okay, so once you can make a simple statement like this is a teacher, what's the logical next step? Well, you have to learn how to ask a question, right? And this book, it doesn't waste any time. It jumps right from passive learning into active conversation. And look how elegantly it does this. Using that same teacher, that same word, hada, all it does is add one little word to the beginning to flip the whole thing into a question. So it becomes, هل هذا معلم? Is this a teacher? And the answer immediately reinforces what you just learned. نعم هذا معلم. Yes, this is a teacher. It's so simple, it's repetitive, and honestly, it's an incredibly effective way to learn. There's actually a name for this technique. It's called visual association. What the book is doing is basically fusing the word, the image, and the idea all into one single thing in your brain. It's a really powerful, really direct way to learn. And as we're going to see, this book uses it for pretty much everything. So now that we've got the basic building blocks down, this is, and is this, the book just opens the floodgates. It starts throwing all this new vocabulary at you, so let's take a quick tour through the world of words it starts to build. And it starts, pretty logically, right there in the classroom. You see a blackboard, a bag, a notebook, a door, all the things that would be right around a young student. And of course, every single one is labeled, reinforcing that core idea of hada and hadihi over and over again. Then, from the classroom, the world starts to expand. Now we're talking about animals, a fish, a rooster, a cat, a dog. And every single new word is another chance to practice that fundamental choice, right? Is it masculine or is it feminine? And finally, the lessons move right into the home, and specifically into the kitchen. So the whole context shifts to daily life, conversations about food, what's on the table. The vocabulary is getting more specific, more useful for actual everyday life. Okay, so we've seen how the book teaches words, but this is where things get really interesting, because there's a much deeper lesson going on here at the same time. This book isn't just building a vocabulary, it's building an identity. And this is the part where you can really see the educational philosophy behind the whole thing. The language lessons, they start to become completely inseparable from lessons about faith, about culture, and about your place in the world. I mean, just look at this page. On one side, you've got simple sentences like my name is Khalid and your name is Rafiq. But right next to it, with the exact same weight, you've got a picture of the Kaaba and the sentence, Allah is my Lord and your Lord. See, it's not a separate chapter on religion, it's woven directly into the core grammar lesson. And here it is again. It's set up to look like just another simple question and answer drill. But listen to the content. What is your book? My book is the Quran. Who is your prophet? My prophet is Muhammad. What is Islam? Islam is the religion of truth. This isn't just practicing your vocabulary anymore. This is a catechism, plain and simple. All right, so to build this really personal sense of identity, my prophet, my religion, the book has to introduce another super important grammatical tool. It needs to teach the difference between what is my and what is your. And honestly, I have to say, this is just a brilliant way to teach. Instead of giving you some boring chart to memorize, the book uses this really elegant visual diagram. The little symbol for my is right in the center, and you see these lines just radiating out, showing you how it literally attaches to other words to create my name, my book, my father, and my Lord. It takes this abstract grammar concept and makes it totally tangible and crystal clear.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and put all these pieces together. What is the total package, the big lesson that a kid takes away from a textbook like this?
What we're really looking at is a holistic approach. This book operates on the principle that language is never separate from identity. They're completely fused. Vocabulary is hammered home with visual repetition. Grammar is always taught in a real-world context, and those cultural and religious values, they aren't an add-on. They are the absolute foundation. The goal here isn't just to make you fluent, it's to shape your entire worldview.
And really, nothing says it all better than this direct quote from one of the lessons. This is the core statement that a student learns to make about themselves and about other people. It's the culmination of all the vocabulary, all the grammar, and all the values that have been taught right from page 1. And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. When you see how seamlessly this textbook merges language and identity, it kind of forces you to think about the purpose of education itself. If every language textbook is, in a way, building a world for its students, what kind of world are we or should we be choosing to build?